This we have quite a long agenda today. We'll first of all discuss retirement protection and Professor Nelson Charles' report, and then we will discuss the other two items starting from 11:45. But then I've told the secretary that the main focus of today's meeting is retirement protection. Dr. Fernando Cheung has yet to arrive. Now, there is a subcommittee which needs to continue working till July. And then we have another subcommittee on the waiting list, and that's a subcommittee on retirement protection. And then there is another subcommittee on domestic violence. I understand that SID's subcommittee will finish its work in March. Then the subcommittee on domestic violence can start its work only after Fernando Cheung's subcommittee has completed its work in July. Mr. Tang, then what's going to happen to the subcommittee on retirement protection? According to the clerk, SID's subcommittee will be able to complete its work soon. But then, will we have enough manpower support? No, in fact, Mr. Leung, the HC chairman, said that he knew we had waited for a year. So Dr. Cheung's subcommittee will finish its work in July, and then the subcommittee on domestic violence will start its work in September. And the next time, our next meeting will be held on the 13th of January, 10:45, in conference room 3. The administration has proposed one item, pilot scheme on community care service voucher for the elderly. And Dr. Fernando Cheung has proposed one item, that is ways to improve situation of refugees, torture claimants and asylum seekers in Hong Kong. Alright? So we'll discuss these two issues next time. Alright, no objection, no comments. Tang Ka-piu, Deputy Chairman. I've in fact written to you on the workers, about 1,000 of them. They like the sector, they don't want to leave the sector. But after March, 1,000 people will have to leave the sector. They will become unemployed. It is said that a case conference will be held, but I think this is quite an urgent matter that requires discussion. Deputy Chairman. Chairman, can we ask the administration to give us a reply next time? But the activity workers are not too clear about the government's policy. So can we have a longer meeting so that we can discuss the matter in January as well? Because they will have to leave on the 1st of April. And so I think we should have the administration giving us a reply in January instead of in February. And can we invite representatives from the management side and from the staff side to come? One representative from each party. I think that would be good. All right, members, what do you think? Tang Ka-piu. You're saying a P-top representative? I think we need to have a representative, say from the union or from the employees, and then we'll have one representative from the management, maybe HKCSS. Tang Ka-piu, you're frowning. It's up to you to decide, Chairman. Now, because the complainant is a union, and I think we should invite the union to come. The union has complained to LegCo. They've also approached many of our members. In fact, I agree with Tang Ka-piu. I was one of the duty roster members. It's unreasonable that on the one hand, the government is recruiting new people, and then on the other hand, the government is terminating the contracts of some. So let's ask the staff to come and also the management to come. Now, the problem is that we don't have enough time, and so we can't allow too many deputations. So because of the lack of time, we can only invite one staff representative and one management representative. So I think we'll need a 3-hour meeting, all right? All right, so 3 items altogether. Deputy Chairman, on the 19th of November, we had a special meeting on the rescue drug testing plan. So, Chairman, perhaps you can invite the security panel to hold a public hearing as well, because we are concerned about the downstream services. But what about the upstream services? I understand that they will be discussing this matter sometime this month, but I don't know whether they will be meeting deputations or not. All right. I think we will need to respect the other panel, but then perhaps we can also ask them whether they will be meeting deputations. Now, we have 2 subcommittees, one on the waiting list, one on retirement protection, the other on domestic violence. I understand that in March, one subcommittee will be able to release a time slot for the subcommittee on retirement protection. No. Concerning the subcommittee on the carers, it will finish its work in July, and then the subcommittee on domestic violence can commence its work. And also next time, we want to include one urgent item on our agenda. Now, concerning P-top, now the contracts will expire at the end of March, and they will have to leave. But then the SWD is now recruiting new people. So we hope that we can discuss the policy next time before their contracts expire at the end of March. But then, due to time constraint, we can only invite one representative from the management and one representative from the union. And then, of course, the administration will also come to tell us about its policy. So the next meeting is going to be a 3-hour one. And then Wong Kwok Heng, you've just come in. Dr. Leong Ka Lau is concerned about the issue of medical assessment form for disability allowance, and Dr. Leong told me that we had to be careful in scrutinizing the form because doctors found it very difficult to come to an assessment. So I will be telling you more about the dialogue between me and Dr. Leung last Friday when we come to that item. Alright, let's invite the administration in. The professor will also come. So this item is on the study on retirement protection in Hong Kong. Now, we hope to adjourn this item before 12. So we'll have 2 full hours for discussing this very important issue.
Good
morning. Good morning. Good morning, Secretary. Good morning, Professor. Welcome. So we have officials from the administration, and we have, apart from the professor, Dr. Ho from the Department of Social Work and Social Administration, Hong Kong U, and also Professor Chen Wai Sam, Professor, Department of Finance Business School, CU Hong Kong, and Professor Wong Yu Cheung, Associate Professor, Department of Social Work, CU Hong Kong. Welcome. And electrical members really want a discussion to commence as soon as possible, but we know that Professor Chow is leading a working group, and we hope that the professor can update us on the latest progress.
After the professor has finished, the secretary could also, speak, and many members, I'm sure, have questions. We have not invited deputations to come today because all of our members are concerned about this scheme, given the time constraint. And after the professor has spoken and the secretary has responded, I propose that each member be given 4 minutes. I believe that 2 hours may not be enough for our discussion, but for various reasons we have 2 other items on the agenda. So if there's no objection, are members agreeable to my proposal? Originally, 5 minutes would be better. I know the members have a lot to say, so the Secretariat has arranged for a 4-minute limit. Perhaps I now suggest that each member have 5 minutes. So if there's no objection, shall we so decide? We'll first have, we'll start with Mr. Leung Kok-hong. I think Mr. Matthew Cheung has probably heard too much already about this issue. Well, the Secretary can be as brief as he can. Perhaps I can give members the background and our objective. The existing retirement protection scheme is, based on the many pillars of the retirement protection system as proposed by the World Bank, and we're relying on 3 pillars, which is actually the MPF, private savings, and Social Security. And for the pillar of Social Security, we've already launched the old age allowance to provide a subsidy for those over 65, and their allowance is an additional layer of protection on top of the CSSA payment and the OAA. More than 400,000 elderly citizens are already receiving this allowance. Overall speaking, the amount of money which the government spend on Social Security is increasing all the time. CSSA and Social Security allowance for 2013 we project will be 40 billion, which is 40% over those of last year, more than 10 billion. And it makes up about 13% of the total government recurrent expenditure. When we consider how we can further enhance the retirement protection scheme, we have to consider the question of affordability and sustainability. There have been diverse views in the community as well, so we must adopt an open attitude and conduct a study in a prudent manner. The Social Security and Retirement Protection Working Group in March this year I think we are grateful to Professor Zhao for agreeing to take charge of this study. We expect that by the mid of next year, the final report will be submitted to the task force, and I'm sure the findings of the study will provide the basis for our community to have a rational and comprehensive discussion on the subject. I understand that Dr. Chow and his team have been working very hard over the last few months, and we're grateful to them. And last Saturday, they conducted a consultation forum. And going forward on the 14th of this month in Causeway Bay, there will be another forum to listen to the public's views. So with that, perhaps I'll now defer to the professor. Professor? Madam Chair and honorable members, first of all, I'm grateful for this opportunity to brief members on the progress of the study on retirement protection. In March, we were commissioned by the Social Security and Retirement Protection Working Group to conduct a study on the future retirement protection in Hong Kong. After we've been appointed in March, we were only able to start work in June. As you realize, we've signed a contract with the government, and that needed time. When we started in June, basically we work in 3 stages. For the first few months, that is June through to August, we concentrated on collecting background information and the analysis of such information. What we have now done is that we've finished an analysis of the poverty problem among senior citizens in Hong Kong, and also the relevant retirement protection regimes in other jurisdictions. We've looked at more than 12 jurisdictions whose system has a reference value for Hong Kong. And thirdly, we've also analyzed the situation in respect of the aging population issue in the next 30 years. Recently, the government has launched a consultation document on population policy. Fourthly, we've also analyzed the relevant studies on retirement protection which were done over the last 2 or 3 decades. After 1997, different political parties and organizations have put forward various proposals, and we've conducted a very simple, study and review. So we've therefore conducted come up with the background information and finished with our analysis. Starting from August and September, we approached different political parties and concerned groups. I'm sure members present, we hope that we have the opportunity to meet with honorable members in due course, and I'm sure in the last few months we have received from different political parties and groups their views on this subject. At the end of this year, the Secretary told you already that on Saturday this week, or last week, we conducted a public forum at the Tuen Mun Government Primary School, and I can certainly give members an account of what transpired. Coming Saturday, we are going to have 2 fora, one at the Polytechnic University and the other one in Causeway Bay, during which time we will consult the public's views. In 2 free newspapers, we've also put up an advertisement twice to encourage the public to participate in the discussion. By the end of this year, we hope we'll be able to finish with our collection of the relevant data, and then we will proceed to analyze the data collected and see where and then we'll be able to make a projection for the next 30 years. Due to financial constraints, we would not be able to make an actuarial projection for the next 30 years for each and every proposal. We will therefore only pick 5 or 6 representative proposals and conduct an analysis. That's our work for the third phase. We hope the next year will take 3 to 4 months to conduct such an analysis and make the projections, as well as writing our report. Before the middle of next year, we expect we'll be able to finish our task. Madam Chair, that roughly is an update of what my committee has done and the work we will need to do going forward. And I'll be happy to provide the necessary information for members. Thank you, Professor Chow. So each member will have 5 minutes, starting with Mr. Wong Kok Heng. Thank you, Madam Chair. Professor Chow is someone whom I respect a lot, and I've had attended your lessons previously. Today, I have 2 questions for him. First of all, the government is now talking about the 3-pillar system, one of which is the MPF scheme. I think among the workers, the unions in Hong Kong, they have all along been criticizing the MPF scheme because the contributions by employers and employees, given there is a hedging mechanism, that is the amount of money saved, has been used to offset the payment of long service payments and severance payments. So after the savings have been accumulated for some time, and because of the payment of long service payment and severance pay, the amount of money accumulated is not really used for retirement protection. And therefore, this pillar, according to the working class or the employees, is a pillar that is already rotten. Since it is rotten, and therefore it cannot be relied upon. So my question is this, Professor, that is, in respect of the study that you are now undertaking, will you be proposing a solution to this problem? The labor sector has a proposal as to what a solution to this problem, because if the problem is not resolved, while at the same time we can't rely on this pillar. My second question is that many workers or employees have told us that the government said it is concerned about the aging, the problem of aging, but there are many men between the age of 60 and 64 when they retire at 60, but between 60 to 64, if they have financial difficulties, they are not eligible for CSSA, and it's not yet time for them to collect their MPF benefits. So during this gap period, they suffer financial hardship. For the female, those are female, many of them retire at 55. So between 55 and 64, they really, how can they survive during those 10 years? Because of the financial difficulties, and at the same time they need to maintain a family. As a result, they have to work as part-time workers. And they really, suffered, a lot of hardship. So in your study, Professor, will you be exploring those two issues? Thank you, Professor. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wong, for your questions. I can, first of all, make a general comment. Our study is aimed at collecting members' views and the public's views and analyze such views collected. We will make certain observations about the situation. I believe that our specific recommendations will be submitted to the working group under the Commission on Poverty, where we were commissioned to undertake the study. We've already said that we will not make those recommendations on behalf of the working group under the COP. I'm sure some members present are members of the working group under the Commission on Poverty. So we will submit our findings to that committee for it to make proposals. When we collect public views, we will simply spell out the facts regarding the MPF savings which are used to offset severance pay or long service payments. It is indeed true that there's a lot of grievances. During the public consultation forum last Saturday, one person who spoke said that before the implementation of the MSW, you have 200 or 400,000 workers who are earning 4,000 to 5,000 a month. They've been contributing to the MPF for more than 10 years. But since they don't have to make contributions and only the employer would make a contribution, so the amount of money accumulated is not a lot already. And after they work for a few years, they are dismissed, and then they are paid severance pay, and that would offset the amount that they have saved. So in the end, there is almost nothing left in the MPF account. So we will honestly reflect such views put forward by the public and put it in our report. As for the solution, it's not for us to put forward any proposal as to how we can resolve the problem. Secondly, regarding those who are between the age of 60 and 64, although the retirement protection we talk about normally refers to those over the age of 65, but I think the honourable member, was correct in other words, after people are past 60, it's difficult for them to find work. So we certainly, this will certainly be one area covered in our analysis, and we'll certainly be putting forward some recommendations.
Yes, thank you, Professor. Right, time's up. Our next member, Tang Ka-piu. Chairman, the Secretary said that there would be one more pillar, OALA, but then this is not correct. No, it's the same pillar. An elderly person can enjoy only one of the following: OALA, CSSA, or OAA. So please don't tell us that there are many pillars. The Secretary said there were 5 pillars. In Macau, their fiscal position is extremely good. But and I understand that they are considering the option of compulsory savings. So they have the Central Provident Fund first, and then they are considering whether MPF should also be implemented. And then I want to state the position of the FTU. Yesterday, Yip Wai Ming and Chen Yun Han stated that the very clear views of the FTU on the matter. In fact, there are 10 funds under the Hong Kong SAR government, and then there is a land fund with a very huge balance. And this fund has been left from the colonial days for social development and social welfare. I'm not going to go into the details of the FTU's proposal in detail. And then timing, Professor Chow. Now, Professor Chow, you're going to come up with some recommendations in the middle of next year. And of course, we'll be grateful if you can incorporate the FTU's proposal in your recommendations. But then I'm concerned about lack of time. Is it that you're going to, we'll have to approach FC for funding? We're of the view that employers and employees will also have to be involved. The legislation will have to be amended, and the legislative exercise takes time. So I want to ask the Secretary about the timetable. Many organizations are of the view that the exercise must start within this term of government. We cannot afford to wait any longer. I understand that Professor Chow and his team have been looking at various options. Now, the MPF has been launched for 13 years. Have you done any surveys among those who joined the MPF and have retired? How many of them have got an amount that exceeds the net contributions? Professor. Yes, thank you. We've received the FTU's proposal, and it would definitely be considered by our team. Now, I can't speak on behalf of the MPFA, but my understanding is that there was a survey conducted in 2011 and the average rate of return exceeded 5%. But as to how many were able to get an amount that exceeded the net contributions, I don't know whether anyone in my team can give an answer. No, sorry. Now, in fact, Professor, I asked the FSTB and the MPFA this question, and no one was able to give me a reply. So, Secretary, how are you going to tie in with Professor Chow's timetable? Are you sincere in doing something? Now, the government is concerned about this matter, and that was why we commissioned the authority in Hong Kong, Professor Chow, to lead a consultancy study concerning the timetable and the roadmap. We'll have to wait till Professor Chow has finished his work, and then the report will be given to the task force. When the task force receives the report in the middle of next year, it will map out the timetable and the roadmap. No, this is unacceptable. Professor Chow has told us a very clear timetable, and it seems that you haven't got a clear roadmap and a timetable. That's unacceptable. Fernando Zhao, the timing is very important. The timetable is very important. Professor Chow will carry out a feasibility study and an actuarial study on the 5 options. And I believe after all the studies, maybe you may find more than one option that is feasible. Professor Charles said that he would not really do the work of the task force for the task force. In other words, the task force under the Commission on Poverty will have the final say. So I'm concerned about the timetable, and would also like to know whether the policy or the decision will be made behind closed doors. So is it that only one lady instead of only one man will make the decision in this case? I hope that the Secretary will give me a reply. The Secretary. Professor, I want to clarify one point. Now, in the light of the funding we have been given, we will only be able to study in detail 5 to 6 options, no more than 5 to 6. And we're not going to rank the options or which one is good, which one is not. I think all options have their merits and demerits. Our job is to list all the merits and demerits of the various options for the reference of the task force. Thank you. Secretary. Now, the consultancy team will submit its report to the SSRPTF of the Commission on Poverty, and I'm sure the task force will involve or engage the public in the discussion. There will definitely be an interactive process. We will not drag our feet. We understand that we have to work or proceed quickly. So we'll have to discuss and study the various options which are more complicated, which can be implemented in the short term, and so on and so forth. So it seems that they don't have any timetables or plans at all. Now the CPU has been studying this matter for years. And I understand that the CPU is still studying the matter and the various options that we haven't been given the details. And then there is a task force under the FS to study the impact of an aging population on Hong Kong's economic development. And I don't know who should answer this question, the professor or the secretary. Now the CPU is carrying out studies, and so is the FS's task force. I want to know whether there is any coordination among these various groups, and whether there is any communication among these various groups. Now we respect Professor Chow's team. We don't want to put him in a difficult position. No, that's not my intention. Now let's ask the secretary this question. The CPU has been studying this subject for a long time. And I want to say that I am most unhappy with the secretary's reply to Mr. Tang Ka-piu's question. You can't tell us that, oh, we can't have a timetable. It really depends on the recommendations received. Now, this subject has been studied and discussed for a long time. This is not a new subject. So, Secretary, please. Yes. Now, Professor Chow's team will provide the task force with a report as the basis, and then the task force will start an interactive process. But what is your timetable? How long is the public engagement exercise going to be, for example? It seems that the administration is again going to drag its feet. All right, Leung Kwok-hong, thank you. The order was placed in March this year, and C.Y. Leung was elected last year in March, and it seems that the government doesn't have any policy objectives. Professor Chow, you really don't have, you really have a difficult job. You just study the various options, you put forward the pros and cons. Now, the administration has said that it has policies. It will brave all difficulties. All right, when you were criticized, you hastily asked an academic to carry out a study for you. I started a filibustering exercise. I was criticized by many. Why is it that you still haven't got a concept? Is it going to be a central provident fund? If that's the case, then you have to increase the minimum wage. And you also have to try to lower property prices, because contributions can only be made on the basis of the take-home pay. Wang Chenying says loudly that he is willing to brave all difficulties. In fact, he was willing to start the process. He was willing to commission an academic to start the study because of the filibustering exercise. How can you say you are displaying leadership when you or you weren't able to give clear instructions to Professor Chow? Contributions or what? What are your policies? Now, Matthew Cheung, what instructions did C.Y. Leung give you? Were there policy objectives? Did you tell Professor Chow your policy objectives, or did you just ask Professor Chow to collect as much information as possible? Now, did you ask whether Professor Chow's proposal was good and whether it should be adopted? In fact, I've also given you a proposal. The government has a lot of money. Tang Ka-piu said there were over $200 billion in the land fund. You know, initially only employers would contribute. Of course, that would not be enough. Have you considered this option? Now I'm going to filibuster again. So you have to start placing another order. I want to tell you that I will definitely filibuster in March. I will definitely filibuster.
After the first filibustering, you only placed the order in March. I mean, what kind of person are you? I'm too far away from you. It's a pity. Mr. Leung Kok-hong, I'm putting a question to the Secretary. What policy objectives was given to him when that order was placed? Even if you make an order for, denim jeans, you would have the respect, the sizes and so on, specified in the order. Did the order simply say a piece of garment? If you do business like that and you export your goods to the States like that, you will be bankrupt. Secretary, he would like me to exhaust all my 5 minutes. So my question is, when you placed the order, what was the policy objective? When are you going to deliver that? I think in paragraph 6 of the paper, we clearly, in paragraph 6 of the paper, it says clearly that we listed out the purpose of the study to be undertaken by the professor's team. We want to listen to the public's views. We want to analyze the different proposals put forward by the public. And then after the professor and his team will then give us a recommendation as to which is the best option, and then we'll defer that to the working group for decision. If we don't respect the professor, we will have done this. We're sincere. Well, if you were really sincere, you should have appointed, the professor as the, top advisor. Now that you are, out of your wits, you're now asking the professor to be your mentor. Mr. Leung Yu Chung. Thank you. Question for Professor Chow. In March next year, you will come up with 5 or 6 options. When you prepare those options, what would be your direction? For example, let's say if one of the options is to maintain the status quo, which the Secretary very often like to say, namely sticking to the existing 3 pillars. Or is it that among the 5 or 6 options, you would suggest, for example, that for some options, the workers will contribute 5%, the employer will contribute 5%. You should clearly explain, I think, based on the concept of, universal retirement protection, what will be the options and whether they are viable. Otherwise, if the conclusion in the end is that we maintain the status quo, it will be a waste of your effort. I hope that the 5 or 6 options can clearly tell us whether or not they are feasible in achieving universal retirement protection. Secondly, this is for the Secretary. You've not answered members' question today. I'm willing to give you time so that you can give an answer next time. Professor Chow told us that he will put forward 5 options in March next year. Madam Chair, I hope that next month we can give them time so that they can show us a blueprint and a timetable so that we know the whole process. Don't just keep on saying that the government will wait for the options to be put forward and then the committee to discuss that. Tell us how much time you will allow for such a discussion, and then how you would come up with the policy recommendations. Professor. What we will do is that with the views collected, we will put them under different categories. For example, some of the proposal is inclined to maintaining the status quo. That would be under one category. There could be another suggestion that we should enhance the existing 3 pillars. A third option could be that we should move towards the model of universal retirement protection. So we categorize the views collected, and when specific proposals are put forward under these categories, we will select the representative proposals and then conduct a projection. We will not incline towards any of the options. One is status quo, the other one is maintaining the other 3 options, or enhancing the existing pillars, or moving towards a model of universal retirement protection. After we've collected the views, we will then decide. We will pick 5 or 6 representative options, and we will look at the effectiveness of these possible options, and we will make reference of the World Bank's principles and see whether or not they will achieve the purpose of sustainability, and whether or not the safe retirement protection is really sufficient, and whether or not financially it is sustainable. So we will conduct a stringent and objective analysis. We will certainly not like what Mr. Leung Yu Chung suggested, namely that we will not be inclined in favor of any option. So how are you going to study the direction towards universal retirement protection? under the existing system, I mean, you will need to look at the existing 3 pillars and see whether or not they are satisfactory. If that's the case, we would be disappointed. We always thought that we're going to study and come up. Your study will come up with a feasible social security system. Among the options, there would be proposals in support of universal retirement protection. I think so far of the information that we've collected, there is a strong inclination towards that. So on the basis of that option, we'll make a projection. We will not say that we should maintain the status quo or enhancing the existing pillars and then conduct a projection accordingly. We'll select among the different categories representative options and then make a projection on each of those. So Mr. Leung can rest assured that regarding the option for universal retirement protection, I believe that among the 5 or 6 options for which we need to make a projections, I believe if we were to pick 6, 2 or 3 could be such types of proposals. Mr. Yu Cho, I think you should queue up for the second time. I think you've all run your time already. Secretary, Chairman already said that we definitely will be mindful of the tight timetable. The professor already said that he will put forward a series of proposals, and we'll go back to the subcommittee under the Committee on Poverty. But we must first of all have a discussion among the community, and then through that process we'll arrive at a consensus, and then we'll follow the direction according to the consensus. Well, you talk about the timetable. How much time will you allow for the community to discuss this issue? I just want him to give us such a blueprint. We need to go back to the task force under the Commission on Poverty and discuss with them about the timetable and their way forward. This time, today is the first time the professor has come to share with members the progress of his work. Secretary, I don't think your answer is satisfactory. I think other members will be pursuing the same question, myself as well. Mr. Pan Siu Ping, thank you. I think the responsibility of the committee led by Professor Chow is certainly onerous. My understanding, according to what I've heard you say, is that after you finish with the study, you'll come up with 5 or 6 options. Of course, you will not rank them on an order of priority, and then you will submit them to the Commission on Poverty for study. So at the moment, you've looked at the practices or systems in 20 to 30 other jurisdictions. You've also heard various deputations. You'll be collecting public views until the end of the year, and then you will then next conduct your analysis and make projections. The government also has a consultation on population policy. We all have a view regarding the retirement age. I think the focus of your study is on those over the age of 65. So in future, after the consultation on long-term housing population policy, how will you work in tandem with and take heed of the findings of that study, or are the 2 studies independent of each other? Professor. We've picked those over the age of 6. We draw the line at the age of 65 because when we make projections, we must draw a line first of all. Otherwise, we don't even know how large is the size of the population. We've looked at other jurisdictions and their systems. I think almost all those jurisdictions would draw a line at the age of 65. Regarding the Consultative Committee on Population Policy, after we've received the report, we will study carefully the population projections. Our team has been commissioned to conduct a study on Social Security and retirement protection. We need to be accountable to that subcommittee under the Commission of Poverty. The chairman of that subcommittee, Mrs. Carrie Lam, the Chief Secretary, is the chair of that task force. So as to how the two committees would collaborate the efforts, it would be for the Chief Secretary to coordinate that. Mr. Raymond Wong. Thank you, Chair. Professor Chow is a respected academic, and we often, study his, articles and papers on retirement and poverty elimination. Although I do not agree with all of his ideas. Today, the Secretary has asked the professor to work for you, and you are betting on the fact that we will not scold you so severely. The report is not yet forthcoming. I'm worried on your behalf. I think, Professor, you shouldn't let your reputation be ruined, because the current administration cannot be trusted, I tell you, Professor. You are someone I respect a lot. I must tell you that this government is not trustworthy. If you work for them, you'll be smeared yourself. Why bother? You shouldn't have promised them to do this. If you take a look at the annex to this paper, the CPU has conducted 5 studies on retirement protection, all of which are rubbish. You look at those 5 reports. The CPU is rubbish. So every year during the budget debate, I always propose proof amendments that we should, cancel the CPU, because basically it's a waste of public funds. Under the leadership of Professor Lau Siu Kai, the CPU has been conducting such studies on retirement protection. Talk about study on filial piety. I mean, they must be dreaming. The problem of aging, retirement protection, and then they talk about the implications of filial piety. Have they lost their senses? Have they wasted a lot of resources? So once again, Professor, I must tell you, it's rare that we can meet with you here. I must say that government cannot be trusted. According to the current timetable, you have to wait until the middle of next year before a final ultimate report will be forthcoming. And then they will still need to go through a very complicated process, going to the task force, and then coming back to LegCo, and then another round of consultation. We don't even have a chance to read your report. The Secretary referred to paragraph 6 of the paper. Of course, I've read that. According to paragraph 6b, on the basis of the relationship among the existing Social Security for the elderly, MPF, and voluntary private savings. That's the 3 pillars that you've been talking about. Actually, all those 3 pillars have already broken. You always talk about the 3 major pillars. Now that we're going to have this study, you're talking about examine the retirement protection functions they collectively perform. These 3 pillars are actually, broken. How many people can afford to save when the CSS payment is so low? Right now, a bowl of barbecue rice used to cost only $10-something. Now it's more than $20. You give them, and the tax of tobacco is, each pack of cigarettes is over 60, and old people, many of them smoke. So with $1,000 that you pay the old people, they can't even afford to make ends meet. They have no social life. They can't even afford a cell phone. So I don't know what is the purpose of your so-called collectively examining the scheme. The World Bank proposed the 5 pillars.
And that is there should be various support for elderly persons. Alright, so is it that we should still be talking about the 3 pillars? The 3 pillars are useless. They have been proved to be useless. Matthew Zhang, tell me what the use of the 3 pillars is. All right, savings, MPF, CSSA. I think there is a consensus in society that the MPF is useless. It should be scrapped. C.Y. Leung, when he assumed office, said that he would study the issue of retirement protection. He asked Nelson Chow, Professor Nelson Chow, to help him. By the time these steps have been completed, C.Y. Leung will no longer be the CE. If there is really universal suffrage, will he be elected? Professor Chow, don't get associated with this rubbish government. I know you have a heart. I will not have any suspicion about your motives. Do you know they are not sincere to listen to your views? They are only trying to make use of you and your reputation. You just go hiking, you do more exercise, or I'll go next door and scold Carrie Lam. Now, Professor Chow, he really respects you too much. I want to say that there is a special meeting of the Constitutional Affairs panel next door. So many members are at that meeting. In fact, I told the Deputy Chairman that I was worried that this very important issue of retirement protection may be overshadowed by other major issues in society. Professor, I just want to respond. Now, Mr. Wong is no longer in this conference room. I thank him for his kind reminder or advice. I think I and my team are commissioned by the administration. But then I want to say that we want to serve the Hong Kong public. We hope that through our study, we can see the launching of a better retirement protection system for all Hong Kong people. Thank you. Thank you very much. Chang Kwok-chu. I think there are two things. First, we want to have an exchange of views concerning the content of Professor Chow's study. And then second, we want to know the administration's attitude. I'll deal with the latter issue. I'm afraid I have to say the Secretary's reply to us was a bit vague and ambiguous. Right? So at that time, when Professor Chow was asked to carry out a consultancy study, everybody believed that there would be universal retirement protection. Then we are worried that after the completion of the study, will not have retirement protection in Hong Kong. So we want to know, Secretary, when and how. Now, I'm also on a task force under the Commission on Poverty. I understand that there isn't a timetable yet, but Secretary, you really need to give Hong Kong people a timetable. Now, I will switch to the former subject. According to the professor, he and his team will study 5 to 6 options proposed by various organizations. Or I understand that you're going to announce the pros and cons of these options, but will there be some recommendations from the consultancy team? I understand that some of the options cover all Hong Kong people, some involve some form of means testing. So will you also be looking at whether these options have a labeling effect or not? And I understand that maybe one of the options is to introduce some piecemeal improvements to existing social security allowances. So I just want to know whether the team will put forward a recommended option. And then concerning the retirement allowance, some have suggested 2,000, some 3,000, some 4,000. So will the consultancy team propose a formula for the calculation of the allowance? In other words, in your view, should an elderly person be given $2,000 a month, $3,000 a month, or $4,000 a month? Tang Ka-piu reminded us that there was a huge amount of money in the land fund, and we can make use of that fund. And after all, we have thousands of billions of dollars of reserves. And then understand that by the year 2040 there will be over 2 million elderly persons, and these elderly persons will on the average continue to live for 2 to 3 decades. So in other words, the number may drop quite rapidly around 2070. So in other words, we mainly have to make sure that the system is sustainable for the 30 years. All right, thank you very much, Professor. Thank you. Yes, let me answer Mr. Jeong's question. Now we'll put together the report and analyze the various options in phase 3. And of course, we'll go by the multi-pillar approach put forward by the World Bank. We'll look at whether the retirement protection is adequate, and we'll of course bear in mind financial feasibility and sustainability. So we will analyze each of the options. We will analyze the pros and cons of each option. But of course, society will have to pay for these improvements. Is society willing to bear the cost? As to whether the team will put forward a recommended option, I can't give you an answer at this stage. We'll have to finish the analysis first. But I want to say that our report will be submitted to the task force for a decision. And it's up to the task force to decide the format of public consultation or engagement. It's not for us to decide how the public engagement should be conducted. And then the amount of retirement allowance. Now the proper term is the replacement ratio. We will come up with a reasonable replacement ratio, taking into account the World Bank's approach, and we are also looking at overseas examples. And then age projections. As members are aware, we look at the figure in the 2011 census, and that would mean 30 years would take us to 2041. So perhaps Professor Chan can say something about our projections for the next 3 decades. Professor Chan. I want to say that it's of course easier to project for a 30-year period than for a 70-year period. And then the demographic structure. The Census Department has come up with population projections up to 2041, and so we really need to adopt the government's population projections. We can't carry out another round of life expectancy projections and population projections. So we'll have to adopt the government's projections. All right, perhaps you can ask your other questions in the next round. It's my turn now. I think Long Hair and Yuk Man have stated to us a fact, and that is we should not be, or we should no longer be discussing retirement protection in a vacuum. In the light of changes in society, we have been adjusting our proposal. Initially, we advocated CPF and then MPF plus OPS. So I want to say that in fact colleagues have been following up on the issue of retirement protection. They have been putting forward and adjusting their proposals. And we do expect this term of government to really do something. Now, in his manifesto, the CE said that he was aware of this problem. He attached great importance to the issue, and so Hong Kong people had a lot of expectations at the time. I'm very disappointed when I heard the Secretary's reply. What the Secretary has told us is very different from what we heard from the CE before he was elected. Secretary, if you tell us that C.Y. Leung is not to blame, you are to blame, then you really are to blame. In fact, we have been giving a lot of well-intended suggestions and advice. FTU has been doing a lot of research. We know that there is this land fund, and the money there has not been used. So, in fact, we have been putting forward a lot of various different proposals.
Seem to be saying that you want to start from scratch. I don't know what are the issues which you think cannot be resolved. Is it a question of money or sustainability? Definitely, you need to spend more money so that old people can enjoy their retirement. If there is a consensus, then we should focus our effort on finding the money. Some people are saying that we should take some money out of the MPF, or we can take money out of the land fund. And yet the Secretary said that he would need to study this further. What exactly do you want to study? Honestly, the answer you gave today is not really appropriate. So I reserve some time for the Secretary to respond. If you repeat what you were saying just now, I think you don't have to bother. I mean, please tell us what practical difficulties are you facing. Are you trying to delay this or stall this, or are you really determined to take this forward? Because you're still not able to answer our questions. Madam Chair. Well, this is a serious study. The SAR government has commissioned Professor Chow and his team to take a comprehensive look and conduct a study on the subject. so that they can give the administration good suggestions. And as a result, the government have a solid basis to discuss with the community the subject of retirement protection. So we must give the professors' team some room so that they can submit a report to the task force on Social Security and retirement protection. Once it received a report from the professor, they will initiate a discussion in the community. Otherwise, we wouldn't have invited the professor to conduct this authoritative study for us. So I think your doubts about the government, well, I understand. I understand that you are very anxious. We really would also like to resolve this issue this time. After the professor submitted his recommendations to the task force will look at it, and then it will have an interactive dialogue with the community. And inevitably, we cannot bypass a discussion with the community and also interacting with LegCo. The professor said that he will submit a report in the middle of next year. You still have 6 months after you receive his report, assuming you have 6 months to listen to the public's views. I emphasize once again, there have been intensive discussion on the subject already. And yet you tell us that you will start from 2015, as in the case of minimum wage. Only then can you respond to the community's aspiration. But from what we've heard you say just now, we are totally lost. You say you'll go back and conduct study and yet another further study. Secretary, please give us a timetable and a roadmap. The welfare panel in this council will be putting forward a proposal. We have a task force in LegCo to follow up on this issue. I'm sure, as in the case of the statutory minimum wage system, they will propose. They will put forward a proposal. So please don't stall us any further. Give us timetable and also make it difficult for the academic. I don't think you need to answer my question. I'm sure when the time comes, we'll ask you the questions. Mr. Lee Cheuk-yen. Thank you. Professor Chow has already retired. Mr. Secretary, I'm worried that you are like a PhD candidate with Professor Chow's guidance, and then Professor Chow will show you how to kind of study. After you finish your study, you get a PhD degree, and then you can retire. I'm worried that the method you proposed just now doesn't show that you are making any commitment at all, and we are very, very dissatisfied and disappointed. You always say that we need to resolve the problem of aging, and the most fundamental issue in terms of population aging is poverty on the part of the senior citizens. We all know that we're in a very shameful situation. That is, senior citizens don't have protection in the form of a retirement fund. In other countries, even in the mainland or overseas, senior citizens can actually collect a retirement pension every month. But in Hong Kong, we don't have anything like that. Of course, you say you have the old age allowance. What I'm talking is not about that, but a genuine retirement protection regime. You said that everybody is anxious and that our skepticism is warranted. If that's the case, you have to, alleviate our skepticism. You must come up with a specific timetable. Madam Chair, you said that there will only be a preliminary, discussion in 2015. That's already too late. But he can't even give us that commitment. So you're now wasting Professor Chow's time, I'm worried, as if you were a PhD candidate, under his guidance. You say there will be interaction going forward. Does that mean that there will be a consultation? Will you have an option that will be put forward for public consultation, and then that option will be the basis of the final option, so that people can have a retirement protection in the end? To answer Mr. Lee's question, first of all, we are serious about this study. We really have the sincerity We're not doing a PR exercise or trying to delay things. Secondly, the timetable is that once the professor has submitted his report to the task force on Social Security and retirement protection, professor will come up with 6 different options and various data, and then the task force will need to take some time to pick the best solution that would suit Hong Kong, and then we'll subsequently consult the public and LegCo. And if everybody agree with a particular option, we can proceed. But people may have different views. We need to listen to the public views. We definitely have to go back to that task force. Secretary. Now, in that case, how long will the consultation period be? You say the task force on Social Security will pick one or two options, either one or two options, as if you talk about public consultation. When will that start? Will it start in March next year or April? And will the consultation for 3 months or 6 months? Could you tell us? Well, at this stage, before we have a discussion with the task force, honestly, at today's meeting, I'm informing we're here to meet with members, even though the professor has not yet completed his study. The professor is very willing to have interactive dialogue with members. But if you ask the government to give you a roadmap today, and in fact the professor has not yet submitted his report to the task force, but despite that we are coming here as soon as possible to talk to members. And then we will later on discuss with the task force, discuss the timetable issue. At this stage, I don't think it's appropriate because before we have a chance to talk to the task force, I cannot tell you my personal thoughts. But I can tell you that I hope that this problem can be resolved within the current term of the administration. All of us have the same expectation. This is a very important subject. I also hope that the administration of the current term will be able to resolve this issue. Secretary, you said you would defer this to the task force, and the task force has commissioned Professor Chow to conduct a study. They did not mention the second part of the process. Is it that is it that the government doesn't have the sincerity to really resolve the problem? Why have you not come to an agreement beforehand, Chairman? The task force, when it commissioned the professor, it simply ask the professor to form, an expert team to conduct a study and then pick the options which will suit Hong Kong. As I said, so far, I think the professor has not yet, finished with the study. But out of respect for members, he's come here to have an interactive dialogue with members. So we hope there will be more communication. I hope we speak on your behalf, our friends in the public gallery. Mr. Albert Ho. If we interact like this, I don't know how long it will go on. The Secretary said he hopes that the problem can be resolved within the current term of the administration. That is not a clear commitment that the current administration will make a decision. I don't think we should take it that he means this. You're not certain that there will be a decision, right? If you ask my opinion, I hope the current administration can come up with a decision regarding the direction to move forward. Even if legislation is required, that takes time, but at least we should have a decision regarding the way forward. You're still using the word hope. In other words, that is not a commitment that the current administration can really come to a decision. You just hope that would be the case. And even if a decision is made, it's only a decision regarding the principle, and you say the relative legislative work cannot be finished within the current term. In future, when we have a new CE and a new LegCo, everything can start from scratch again. I'm really worried. We've been interacting for many years already, Mr. Secretary. I think we're getting more and more confused, Our hair is graying, in the process. I think Professor Chow is trying his best, But can you really expedite the study? I mean, several studies have already been done in the past. What the public is most dissatisfied is that 3 reports have been completed previously and it was not published. I don't know why. Was it because EXCO has read those reports and therefore it cannot be disclosed? Whenever EXCO reads something, it cannot be open, right? Professor Chow, please don't submit your report to EXCO, otherwise it will become confidential. There's a heated discussion, but the government is dealing it in a very, very, it's not enthusiastic. Is it because the CE is not elected by universal suffrage, therefore he doesn't have the authority to make that decision, and he has to wait until a CE is returned by universal suffrage? The government has proactively commissioned Professor Chow and his team to study into this matter. As I said, we really have the sincerity. We hope to be able to resolve this issue. Over the years, as members said, there have been lots of discussion and many proposals have been put forward. The professor will oppose these people and then conduct a detailed analysis and then pick some mainstream options and conduct an actuarial assessment. These are the kind of work that we've not done before. The work done by the CPU was not as detailed, but the professor this time is conducting a very thorough and comprehensive study. So we have expectations of the professor's recommendations. So please give us some space so that we can go back to that task force on Social Security and retirement protection. The task force will follow up on his report seriously. As for the way forward, then we have a basis to engage in a dialogue with the community. With the options in hand and the data, that we can actually look at the specific data and so on, and the public will find it easy to understand. And we'll certainly, make good use of time. I understand that your term will expire in 2016. The current administration's term will expire in 2016. We understand your concern. I think we're in the same boat. When the professor accepted our appointment, we're very happy because it really, we really have great expectations of the professor's report, which we are sure will be very authoritative. You don't even have a timetable for an interim report. You must have interim reports telling us how many options you have collected, what are the controversies. Will there be such an interim report? If you say this study required detailed analysis, you have to do it in different stages. But at least, having worked on this for so long, will you be coming up with the intermediate report or interim report outlining the various options and what policy would be required? If you implement those options, how much money would be required? Because if we're going to have comprehensive retirement protection, the government may need to come up with the funds. And how much money are we talking about? Originally, we talked about 50 billion. Now we understand that it's going to be 2 or 3 times that amount. So is that going to be an interim report, Professor? Mr. Ho. In our contract with the administration, there will be a progress report which we will submit to the task force on Social Security and retirement protection by the end of this month. All I can say is this: starting from January, we will proceed with the projection and the analysis. So possibly, at this stage, we can not give you any figures or data. After we have submitted the report to the task force, the task, let me repeat again because Mr. Ho was not here. In stage 1 of our work, we conducted a background study on the aging problem and the different systems in other jurisdictions. I believe in our progress report, we will outline the various options that we would propose, including those on which we will make projections. When we were commissioned, we can only submit the report to the task force. As to whether or not the task force will disclose the report or want to give an account to members, that's not for me to say.
Then can I ask the Secretary whether he will promise that the consultancy report will be made public? Because we want to give our input on the report. Secretary, now I hope that everything should be transparent. You hope. You have to say. Now, but then the task force hasn't had a meeting yet. Please, members, do be patient. Now, Mr. Chang Ka-piu is a member of the task force. He knows very well that I'm not telling a lie. The task force hasn't really discussed the detailed steps. I want to say that we're not dragging our feet. This is a serious study. The professor and his team will once and for all look at all the relevant issues and analyze the various options for us. KK Fong, sorry, now because I was at the CA panel meeting, and maybe what I'm going to say has been said by other members. Firstly, I don't think the Commission on Poverty should be tasked to deal with retirement protection. Retirement protection is a right of the elderly. It's not poverty alleviation. Now, the Commission has visited Taiwan and Japan. Japan has a universal retirement protection system as a tripartite contribution system. The government provides a basic allowance, and then the employer is responsible for 1/4. The employee responsible for 1/4, and then employer 1/4. Employees get the full amount, and then housewives get the government's contribution. You know, they have a consumption tax of 3%. And we asked the Japanese whether or what they felt about the system, and they said that the contribution was less because the working population had declined, and so the government had to provide a subsidy. But then the Japanese felt that the elderly persons must not be forgotten, because they were those who helped build the country and make the country strong. So we're talking about respect for the elderly by the younger generations. So when we talk about retirement protection, we should not be looking at it from a poverty alleviation perspective. And in Japan, they are willing to increase the consumption tax in order to make the retirement protection system sustainable and viable. Our Secretary, now in fact, the CS4A has already said that we shouldn't be too concerned as to whether the Commission on Poverty or another body is spearheading the matter. It is, in fact, we are open, we're open-minded, we are pragmatic. What's important is that we kickstart the study, and then we have the results, and then there can be consultation, and then we can move forward. Now, you know, Carrie Lam is responsible for population policies, right? Retirement, and then we have Commission on Poverty responsible for retirement protection, and then FS leads a task force. I can't remember the name of the task force because the FS is what acquired. So one part is about poverty alleviation, one part is about labor supply, the other part is about financing. So where should we discuss the value that we should attach to elderly persons, the values that they treasure in Japan? Because if you ignore the value of young elderly persons, maybe you may decide not to implement retirement protection at all. Now, in fact, concerning there are different groups and different commissions have different areas of work. Now, the gist of my question is whether you will take into account fully the value of elderly persons. Now, elderly persons made a lot of contributions to society in the past, and said that today we must respect elderly persons. Now, of course, we respect elderly persons. We do appreciate their contributions. So you're willing to uphold this value by spending money. Now, in fact, we have the Elderly Commission. We have lots of activities promoting the concept of respect for the elderly. Of course, we should respect our elderly citizens. So I want to know whether you are going to uphold this value, this respect, even though government will have to spend a lot of money on this one. I'm sure the professor's team will take on board this very important value in the study. Professor, I want to say that Japan is one of the main areas or countries that we analyze in respect of the retirement protection system. And our premise is that retirement protection is a fundamental right of the citizens. Thank you. All right, second round, Tang Ka-piu. Now, members have already voiced their different views. I have two hopes. First, as I understand that there will be heated debates in society on political reforms. But I hope that the Secretary will have the courage to really launch retirement protection during his term. Don't leave the task to the next term of government. And now, when you put forward an option or some several options to consult the public, please make sure that it's affordable and financially viable. Don't give society false hopes. And second, now Professor Chow, some members made some remarks. They said that they were made for your good, but I want to say that I'm grateful to you for having accepted the appointment from the government. Now, Chairman, the Secretary, in replying to Mr. Albert Ho's question, said that after the consultancy group has come up with a report, then you will select one option for consultation? Or is it that you will consult the public on all 6 options? And how are you going to choose one from 6? I want to know the government's attitude after you've received the consultancy report. And I want you, Secretary, to assess whether the present 3 pillars are satisfactory. And then finally, Chairman, now Professor Chow will be studying in detail 5 to 6 options. There will be detailed studies, actuarial studies. And I think this panel, Chairman, should encourage organizations with concrete proposals to come to present their options to us. For example, 4 to 5 minutes for each deputation. Because the subcommittee won't be set up till the 1st of April, the earliest, and also we will have to keep the momentum in society. I think this panel can provide a platform for different organizations to give their proposals. We want to keep the momentum. Now, in fact, if there had not been the meeting next door, the discussion now going on would have been given much more media coverage. Professor, and then the Secretary. Of course, we'll do our best. We'll not just throw out 5 to 6 options. We will provide adequate data and analysis for these various options. We're not just going to throw out 5 to 6 options for discussion. We hope that the task force, the SSRP task force, can, after discussion, come up with some conclusions. But of course, we can't really say anything on behalf of the task force. I think if the administration simply throws out all the 6 options for discussion in society, then there may be some confusion. And I think our team will continue to give our support even after our term has come to an end. Thank you. Now, Professor, there will be 5 to 6 options presented to the task force. When will that be? What time next year? As the Secretary has pointed out, we hope, according to our contract, we need to submit a report by the middle of next year. So we'll definitely complete the report before the end of June. So the task force will receive the report at that time. Yes, correct. So maybe March or April. That's our timetable. I mean, giving the report to the task force in March or April. But I can't really promise anything at this stage.
But I hope that there will be a preliminary report for the task force by March or April. And definitely it won't be later than the end of June. Mr. Tang Ka-piu, I think time is almost up. So let me just say this. The subcommittee on retirement protection will start working from April. So I think we will soon follow up on the points that you've raised today, and we will also be working in tandem with the professor. I agree with the analysis. That is, how can we arouse more awareness on the part of the community? Perhaps we need to the electricals will need to do something. Fernando Joe. Having heard the Secretary today, we can't help being, upset. Madam Chair, you and I have followed up on this subject for many years. The community and I had made lots of efforts over the years. At times, we knew that we were, embarking on a mission impossible. But now that we see the economy is doing so well, the pie is getting bigger and bigger. But the problem of poverty for senior citizens has never been improved, and in fact, it has deteriorated over the last 10 odd years. So eventually, we hope that the COP, although we don't think that this commission should really be tackling poverty, because retirement protection is a right and not a welfare. But they've put it under the portfolio of the Commission on Poverty, and they've appointed Professor Chow. We have expectations of Professor Chow. We know that he's going to conduct a serious study. But I don't know the Secretary is now. We didn't expect the Secretary is telling us that only after he received a report and recommendation from Professor Chow, he doesn't have a timetable. He doesn't even know what he's going to do. Well, so how serious are you? Are you seriously stalling us? The current administration has not done anything in terms of retirement protection. That is obvious. You're just going around in circles. And the CPU has conducted 5 studies, and now you want to conduct further studies. Under the FS, you have another study ongoing. And the Commission on Poverty and the task force is also looking into the same subject. By the time all the studies are finished, the current administration term will expire, and are we going to elect C.Y. Leung again for the next term? Don't be kidding. This is totally irresponsible. You owe it to the senior citizens of Hong Kong. We fought for this for so long. Have you conducted any public consultation regarding the old age allowance? Right out the outset, you didn't even allow us to have a discussion, and we asked us to vote on it. You could adopt such an attitude. Now, decades of study have been spent on studying into the retirement protection scheme, and now you tell us that you don't have a plan, you don't have a timetable. So the current administration simply don't have the sincerity. So you were really forcing the people to take to the streets. Over the years, we were forced to accept the MPF scheme. And I think you gave us something a lot inferior than what we demanded. You were cheating the workers and the housewives and those who cannot really join the labor force. We're not talking about charity for the old senior citizens. Please come up with a system that will provide a basic, safeguard for the senior citizens. I mean, the government lacks everything except money. We're talking about a basic respect for senior citizens. We're talking about their rights here. Now, in most of the advanced countries, senior citizens are already granted that right. Why is it that in Hong Kong they're still being exploited? Why, having toiled hard for the whole life, in the end they will have to go through your means test before they get any basic allowance? Secretary, you've been the Secretary for Labour and Welfare for so many years. How can you have the peace of mind when you see old people in this sort of situation? In the process, many citizens have passed away. Mr. Secretary, I hope you and your team will go back and think hard about this. The fact that Hong Kong has the prosperity it enjoys now is due to the efforts by many of the senior citizens. Since you have the power, you should really fight for the welfare of the people rather than going around in circles or beating around the bush. Secretary, I think it's pointless if you were to go around in circles again. Could you tell us what are your concerns and worries? I mean, I think when you appointed the professor, you would have expected this to happen. Members think that the government is delaying things. That definitely is not the case. If we drag the professor into this, we would owe him an apology. We are really being very serious. He's the authority. It's an honor that he's promised to conduct the study for us. We will not betray him. We'll certainly analyze his recommendations seriously. Mr. Tang Ka-piu asked for a specific timetable. Today, I'm telling members that the task force do not even have time to study the professor's report. So we certainly respect the professor's opinion, and then we'll come back and talk about it. I think this is total rubbish. You know, when the professor will submit his report, you know that he will submit several options for your consideration. So the task force is due to deal with it. You don't even have a timetable for the plan. You say that the task force is not even met. I don't think that's the case. I must explain clearly, after the professor has submitted the report by the end of June, the task force on retirement protection and social security will definitely follow up on it immediately. I'm sure the options are going to be complicated, and we need time to analyze those options. I think the professor told us that the deadline is the end of June, but he will submit some interim report for the administration. He said he will try his best to finish the study as soon as possible. If the professor is working hard on this, you should work in tandem with him. As an administrative officer, your strength should be in management, and when we talk about management, you must be good at coming up with timetables. The professor already said that he would try his best to submit a report in March. So if you keep saying this, Professor Secretary, you won't be able to convince us. Madam Chair, if this goes on, I don't think we can have any expectations on the current administration. I hope that the results of Professor Chow's study, I think we can simply put those options for a referendum. Because after he received the report, he said there are diverse views, the government cannot make a decision, let's study this further, and then they'll delay it again. Why don't we pick one or two of the best options that the professor recommends, and then we'll simply put out for a referendum, and then let the people tell the current government that if you don't do it, then you may as well step down. I think the people have been involved in the discussion for decades, so I'm sure the people also have a full understanding of this issue. Mr. Chiang Kwok-choo, Deputy Chairman, I wouldn't ask the government any question because I know what the answer would be anyway. I hope the professor and his team can tell us this, that is, other than looking at the 5 or 6 options, within the community there are also various proposals. Will you be also conducting a study on those various proposals, especially those which provide for a universal retirement regime? 80% of the people agree with this. The young people also support this. So will you focus on retirement protection, universal protection? For those which are not universal, then it would require a means test. And there are people in the community who think that when there is a means test, as Frederick Fong said, that it would not be a right, it's a form of welfare. Mr. Frederick Fong said that we should respect the elderly and the value behind that. That seems to be something else. So if you are to set a means test and other welfare measures, then they may have a labeling effect. So, Professor, we also conduct a study in this regard. Fourthly, the question of government's commitment. I don't think you should only stand on the side of the government and consider the question of affordability or sustainability, but rather what will be the in the ideal situation, how much commitment should the government shoulder in financial terms. We don't know how to do the sums, and we have to rely on your team to tell us what that figure is so that we can have some basis for us to negotiate with the government. Finally, Professor Chen from the Chinese University said that it's difficult to make a projection up to 2070 or 2080. I'm sure there will be a big margin for error. What I'd like to know that despite the possible errors, you can tell us what that error is, because we want to convince the government that if we start accumulating the money from now, by 2030, 2014, we may need to spend more, but by 2070, 2080, the amount that would need to be paid out would drop. We want to convince the government you don't need to spend that much money forever. That lump sum will only need to be used for 30 years. Without such data, the government will simply reject it and say, it will work by 2040, and then they will stop the universal retirement scheme after 2040. I'm worried that the government will use such pretext. Although your projection may have errors, please also tell us what the margin of error is, so that when we tell the government that even with the biggest margin of error, the government needs to spend a lot of money. So I hope your team can really give us an answer. Thank you, Professor, and your team. Professor Chen. I'll certainly consider this. We'll look at the data and we'll consider how we will construct a model. But I can't give you any promise, but we seriously consider Mr. Fernando Zheng's suggestion as to whether or not it's possible. It's difficult to quantify the error because you could be talking about errors in terms of the economy, the population, and what the Hong Kong economy will be like 70 years from now. I think common sense will tell us that nobody can predict accurately what Hong Kong will be like 70 years from now. Other than population, you need to look at the performance of the economy, the performance of investments, rate of inflation. These are the things that we cannot predict. We can try our best, but I'm a bit worried about the accuracy of the projection. I can't tell you that there will be a shortfall of 30 million or 300 million. So whether or not I can quantify the margin of error, we may be able to give you a margin, but we cannot promise the accuracy. So I have some reservations or concerns, but I certainly consider, researching into this issue. To answer Mr. Zheng's question, 2 points. First of all, the question of projection. We will honestly reflect the views that we have collected. Fighting for universal retirement protection is a strong voice in the community. In the course of collecting public views, we saw that there are different groups in the community and even political parties which have some reservations about universal retirement protection. We will honestly reflect all those diverse views from different sectors on this subject of retirement protection. The options that we will select to make our projections will be based on the ratio or proportion of the inputs received. At this stage, there's a strong voice advocating universal retirement protection. There are I'm sure there will be 2 options which will be included into when we make our projection. Secondly, we won't say whether or not the government can, shoulder the burden financially, because that will be the decision for the government and the community. All we can say is that if we choose this option, what will be the implications in terms of government spending?
And then if contributions are required, then how much contribution need to come from the employers and how much from the employees. We will not say whether this system is affordable to the government. Say, Mr. Jiang, if you want to treat me to lunch, whether we should eat Chinese food, Western food, or Japanese food. Now, I can only tell you the prices at these various restaurants, but it's for you to decide where we should go, because you are treating me to lunch. So we'll just tell the government what the options are, but it's for the government to decide whether the option is affordable. Will you also consider the idea of seed money? Yes, we can consider that. And Chairman, I want to say that after we have selected the 5 to 6 options for detailed study, we will go back to the relevant organization and or political party for formal acknowledgement. All right, members, I think we need to allow the professor and his team members some time to give their overall views. So I'll draw a line here, and the last member to ask questions in this round is Leung Yu Chung. Yes, Chairman. I want to say that the various pillars that we have collapsed. And so I think there is no use studying how to preserve these pillars. If these pillars are strong and sturdy, then we do not need further measures. So in my view, there is really no need to further study the 3 existing pillars. It will be a waste of time and resources. That's my view. And then secondly, the secretary keeps saying that he hasn't had the benefit of Professor Chow's report yet. He doesn't know how complicated the content is. All right. The political reforms spearheaded by Mrs. Carrie Lam are complicated, and she has said that there will be 5 months for public consultation. Right. So when Professor Chow gives you his options, then maybe you can announce them as soon as possible and allow a few months for consultation, and then you can choose one option for a second round of consultation. No, we're not asking you about your assessment of option A or your assessment of option B. Just release Professor Chow's report for discussion in society. We're not asking you to screen in or screen out any option before public consultation. We don't expect the task force to do any screening work either. You're going to engage the public anyway, so why not engage the public as soon as possible? Now I'll give you some time, all right? Chairman, can we invite the secretary back to the panel next month? And then the secretary can tell us the timetable of public engagement. You're saying now that you need to look at the content of the report first. No, but then the study is funded by public money. Why is it that you can have access to the report while we cannot? Why is it that only the task force can have access to the report? Why can't you promise to release the report? Now, there will be 5 months for public consultation on the political reforms, and I think for retirement protection, we will not need 5 months, right? So first round of public consultation, and then you screen in about 1 to 2 options for another round of consultation. Professor? Chairman, when we accepted the appointment, we had in mind our mission to provide an objective and scientific basis for further discussion. When we met political parties and organizations, we discovered that when we asked them whether they had concrete proposals on retirement protection, many of them did not, though they fully supported retirement protection. So we're not merely talking about expectations, we're talking about concrete proposals. And we'll submit our report to the task force under the Commission on Poverty. It's for the task force to decide whether the report will be made public. If we decide to include 6 options in our report, and if the task force merely throws out the 6 options for public consultation, then the public may feel rather confused. So I think it's for the task force to decide how to handle the 5 or 6 options in our report. Thank you. Secretary? Yes, please give a concise reply to Mr. Leung's question. Now, first of all, concerning the 3 pillars, I want to refer members back to para 6. Please spend more time studying 6 ABCD, and that will help dispel your suspicion. Right? A, the relationship among the elderly CSSA scheme, OALA and OAA, as well as the collective retirement protection functions. B, MPF and voluntary private savings. And C, that's very important. Analyze and make projections on the major proposals on the development of retirement protection for 5 community groups, political sector and academics, have regard to factors such as demographic changes in the next 30 years, economic growth forecasts, and the government's fiscal strengths. Then finally D, use the analysis and projections in C to propose feasible options to further improve the social security and retirement protection for the elderly. So you can see that it's clear. If members had read these subparagraphs clearly, there would not have been so much suspicion. So the objective is to perfect the present system. So after the consultancy team has completed its report, the task force headed by Carrie Lam, and of which I am the deputy head, will promptly decide on the way forward. There will definitely be public consultation. But then, of course, we also understand that time is important, and so we will act as speedily as possible. Right, Lang Yu Chong, he won't be able to give you an answer. Can you try to help, Chairman? I think I really need to thank the professor and his team for coming today. We hope that a decision can be made before the end of this year, and of course, the FTU would also want to see an early decision from the administration. And the professor, do you have anything to say? Yes, I thank the chairman and members for inviting us to come today. We seek, in accepting the appointment, we seek to honestly, faithfully reflect society's views on the matter in our report, and we hope that our analysis can help perfect the retirement protection system in Hong Kong so that present and future retirees will be able to get better protection. I want to say that we do not take sides in our study. We do not side with the government or anyone. We do have our professional ethics as a consultancy team. There will reflect faithfully all the views that we've received, including very strong views in favor or against a certain proposal. And we hope that the discussion that ensues will help to take our retirement protection system forward. Now, the other team members, any comments? No? Thank you very much. Thank you very much for coming. Now, the subcommittee will be formed in February next year. And in the subcommittee, we'll press the administration for a timetable. Yes, I understand the professor's concern. It may be difficult for society to discuss 5 to 6 options in the report at the same time. But I think the administration must place everything under the sun, so to speak. I am sure the professor's team will very faithfully reflect different views in the community. And so I think the government must be open-minded, and you mustn't consult the public only after you've made some preliminary decisions, right? Although the secretary hasn't been able to answer our questions, we want him to tell the CS4A and the CE that the administration will no longer be allowed to drag its feet.
好，或者我哋請
We may now invite the administration to join us for the next item on the agenda.
歡迎各位官員嚇。
I'd like to welcome the officials. Members. We will schedule to finish at 11:45 for the last item. We overran for 50 minutes already, so I hope we will have good. We will exercise some good time management. The next item is the extension of the PAS bracket poverty post. Mr. Secretary, could you take us through the paper? Thank you. Today, we are proposing to members the retention of a supernumerary directorate post. As the chairman said, this is the post of a PAS responsible for poverty. This post actually is not a new one. On the 10th of March 2008, that post was created with the support of LegCo. And then in 2011, members approved a deferred extension of this post for 3 years until the 9th of March. So 6 years have elapsed since. We are now proposing to retain the same post for another 3 odd years until the 30th of June 2017. As the name suggests, the incumbent is responsible for tackling poverty. He will work responsible for the poverty alleviation policies under the LHW, and he would also be coordinating the work of the task force, and there are certain projects that he will be in charge of. For example, he is now working on the development fund and the food assistance scheme, and early this year and in the middle of this year we already reported members on the progress. With your support, because the post will lapse on the 9th of March, we hope that on the 21st of January this year, we'll go to the ESC, and if things go smoothly, we will go to the FC on the 21st of February for approval. Members, we say 3 minutes for each member. Fernando Zhang. Thank you. Well, the post was created in 2007. It's been 6 years already, and you're now proposing to extend it by another 3 years. Last time in 2001, when the post was extended for another 3 years, the administration said that this was a short-term post because of many welfare and poverty alleviation policies, once they were formulated, will be taken care of by the permanent officers, and there will be another staff establishment, to underpin the work of the Commission on Poverty. The Permanent Secretary refers to the Food Bank and the Children Development Fund. I think we've been working on that for many years already, and they should have already been incorporated under the portfolio of officers who belong to the permanent establishment. You say there's a long-term requirement for this post. So in that case, don't extend it 3 years at a time. Why don't you say that this should be a permanent post? If you say you need the flexibility, last time you had one chance and you're asking for another extension, and you're saying that there's no need for a permanent post. However, what you're saying here is that the work that to be the two major schemes. We've been doing it for a long time. It's a legacy of the previous Poverty Commission. You should have considered already the need for a permanent post. Why is it that now you're coming back and telling us the same thing? Please explain this clearly to us. Either say there's you need a permanent post for this post, because in 2007 you said that the post will only required for 3 years. So please, give us a clarification, because I'm not convinced. Chairman, as Dr. Cheung said, our efforts to tackle poverty has been looked at by the Labour and Welfare Bureau. Last time, when we asked members to extend the post for 3 years, the situation then is different from what the current situation. We have reinstated the Commission on Poverty within our Bureau. Because of reinstatement of that commission, we also need to coordinate our work efforts in tackling poverty. Furthermore, the duties which could be undertaken by by permanent by officers by permanent officers they're already being delegated to the Labor Department officers. But regarding the two schemes, the Children Development Fund and the Food Assistance Scheme, there's still some new initiatives. For example, for the Children Development Fund, we are piloting to have a pilot scheme to extend the fund to schools, and that would require policy coordination. We can't simply defer that to the SWD. So we're closely monitoring the situation. By 2017, when the term expires, we will conduct another review, at which time we will consider whether we need to retain this post. Of course, making it a permanent post is something that we will consider carefully, and if the functions for this post and the coordination effort which need to be done, we will consider at the time whether or not it could be deferred, transferred to officers with a permanent post. I don't think she has answered my question. Honestly, the Children Development Fund, we've been working for this for so many years. You should already have asked someone, an incumbent of a permanent post, to take charge of that. Same for the Food Assistance Scheme. You're still coming here to proposing a 3-year supernumerary post. I'm really not convinced, Madam Chair. Point taken. Next, Mr. Tang Ka-piu. Thank you. For the government's proposal to extend a post or create a supernumerary post, of course we will not object, because if we have more elite officers taking charge of welfare policies, it's always welcome. Whether or not we're talking about elite or simply a generalist, an AO may not understand the welfare issues like retirement protection. Will an AO who is a generalist understand these issues? In Annex A, I mean, you've included that in the portfolio of this officer. In your paper, I think you gave us examples like the Food Bank and the Children Development Fund. I don't think we are convinced, because the title sounds very important, poverty alleviation. That obviously has to link, is closely related with the work of the Commission on Poverty. And this is the only officer in charge of poverty alleviation. But there's a lot of work to be done by the Commission on Poverty. So is this officer going to be an expert or a generalist? Can he really take charge of this important social debate? Last third Wednesday, we had a discussion on subsidy for low-income households. Obviously, the government will work on this. We don't know the options yet. It's going to be one of the major tasks of the Commission on Poverty. Is it the case that another officer will take charge of such work? Permanent Secretary. Well, this colleague is an administrative officer at D3 level. The work for this colleague is to provide support and coordinating, the secretary in his work to tackle poverty. So his expertise will be in coordination and providing support. Of course, he would not replace the professional officer or the secretary who is in charge of policy. The example I gave are the two tasks which are already being done at the moment. It's true that the poverty tackling under the Commission on Poverty, that such work are undertaken by the Labor Department. And if there are any other measures to tackle poverty, it's also taken care of by this officer. So allowance for low-income household will also be coordinated by this colleague. Yes. So this colleague will be, playing the role of the coordinator. Mr. Tam Yu Chung. I think if this post requires the incumbent to conduct coordination work and conduct studies and research, then I would support the creation of such posts. But if the policy is already very mature, and we're only talking about the enforcement of such policies, then we may not need to create such a post. I don't think we need to consider creating a permanent post. We can wait for a few years before we make a final decision. Therefore, I agree with the creation of this post under the circumstances, so that we can have more manpower to take charge of this area of work. I therefore support the proposal. Members, members have different views, but no other members would wish to speak. So may I now consult with members whether we agree with the government's proposal to create this post? We have members who are against the proposal. Well, Dr. Fernando has left the chamber. So does it mean that the majority of members present are in support of the proposal? Of course, I understand that this officer will work under the Commission of Poverty. But going forward, I think there is a need to create a permanent post to take charge of such duties. Dr. Fernando Zhang is right. Otherwise, it will be really, a lot of problem if the incumbent officer is not familiar with all the issues relating to poverty. Okay? The next item is the amendment to the medical assessment form for disability allowance under the Social Security Allowance Scheme. We have two more officers joining us for this item. So I'd like to welcome you all to the meeting. Welcome. Permanent Secretary, could you walk us through the paper? Thank you. Good morning, members. Today, we are here to report to members on the proposed amendments to the disability allowance form. Earlier on, members have already heard a report we gave regarding disability allowance. At the meeting, some members required our Bureau and the SWD to review the medical assessment form for the disability allowance scheme and see whether or not we can scrap the description of losing 100% of their ability to earn a living. So today we've come back to report to you on the progress. Members will recall that the Ombudsman earlier had published a report regarding the disability allowance.
It was said that the medical assessment form should be revised, and then there was a group led by Mr. Fong to carry out a review, and after the review, there will no longer be a checklist. In other words, all the various items will be incorporated into the form to facilitate the doctor's work. And then ability to work in the original occupation and performing any other kind of work has been removed from the list of daily duties. This is because the Ombudsman is of the view that this condition or the condition involves social and environmental consideration as well as medical factor, and doctors have expressed difficulty in assessing this condition. And last time we came, members supported the amendment. But then Concerning the reference to 100% loss of earning capacity, members didn't want this reference to remain. We consulted the SWD, social workers of the D of H and of the hospital authority, and also the D of J. And in the light of the concerns expressed, we propose to delete the reference to 100% loss of earning capacity. But we hope the deletion of this reference will not affect the intention behind the setting up of the DA in 1973, and that is to assist severely disabled Hong Kong residents in meeting special needs arising from severe disability. Forgive me for being a bit long-winded. This reference, in fact, appears in Schedule 1 of the Employees' Compensation Ordinance. In 1973, the ICSCO was of the view that the criterion should be adopted by doctors in assessing whether a person needed substantial help from others to cope with daily life. And there are 8 categories of injuries, including loss of functions of 2 limbs, loss of functions of both feet, and so on and so forth. Now, the form will mainly be filled in by a doctor. And a doctor needs not be too concerned about the source of this reference, and so we are willing to delete the reference to 100% loss of earning capacity. But this deletion should not affect the policy intention of setting up the DA in 1973. And then members hope that we can also include people with loss of 1 limb, but that's a separate exercise. In fact, after the last meeting, we commissioned Hong Kong U to carry out a study on places like the UK, the US, Australia, and Taiwan. And in the light of Mr. KK Fong's comments, we will also study the situation in Spain. And we hope to complete the study before the end of 2014. We consulted the RAC, and the RAC was of the view that concerning the amendment to the medical assessment form and the deletion of the reference to 100% loss of earning capacity, the RAC expressed support. Now, in fact, the revised form is at Annex 5. The RAC studied Annex 5 and was willing to accept the revised form. And with the panel's support, we'll ask the SWD to formally revise the form. But then it takes time for the SWD to revise the form. We'll only be able to revise the form next year. And in that exercise, the other recommendations in Annex 3 will also be implemented. Thank you. Thank you. All right. We have 4 members on the in the queue: Leong Ka Lau, Hon Tang Ka-piu, Fernando Zhang. All right, 4 minutes. Leong Ka Lau, Chairman. I have a lot to say, but at the same time, I have to leave early. So I hope that members will forgive me. May I refer to para 4.1, taking into account the Ombudsman's observations, blah, blah, blah. The reference to work in the original occupation and performing any other kind of work will be deleted. Now, what exactly is this? Now this appears on the checklist of the present assessment form. Right. In fact, this appears on the first item. Right. If there are other disabilities outside the 8 in the schedule to the ECO, then the doctor has to look at whether the applicant can perform a few functions: standing steadily, communicating with people, doing cleaning. So if the applicant can't perform these tasks, he can't work. And then the first item, ability to work in original occupation and performing any other kind of work. If you remove this from the list, then there may be some controversy. Let me explain. The Ombudsman has not recommended that this reference be deleted by the SWD. The Ombudsman merely recommends the deletion of the reference to 100% loss of earning capacity. The Ombudsman has not recommended the deletion of the assessment of work ability, because in the direct investigation report of the Ombudsman in 2009, there was an annex, the last annex. And the annex contained recommendations on how to amend the form. And in the annex, this reference to work in the original occupation and performing other kind of work was retained. Now, this reference is important. Now, if a doctor reads the checklist and sees this reference, then for a person with loss of one limb, with his work ability affected, at the moment he is qualified for the DA. But if you delete the reference to work ability, the doctor can't recommend the grant of DA to this person with loss of one limb. And concerning the court case, the person with loss of one limb lost the case because he challenged the decision of the SWD and the appeal committee. He did not challenge the assessment of the doctor. At that time, SWD said that it was the doctor's responsibility to come up with an assessment, and the court agreed that there was a division of labor. Now, in fact, he should have challenged the doctor whether he had really read the form and whether he had understood everything in the form, including the checklist. The Ombudsman is of the view that it shouldn't be for the doctor alone to, within a short period of time, assess the work ability of the applicant. He is of the view that there should be a multidisciplinary team comprising doctors, social workers, occupational therapists to do the assessment. But then SWD and hospital authority, because of administrative reasons, do not favor the idea of an interdisciplinary team. They merely want the doctor to carry out the assessment. But that doesn't mean that you should delete the reference to work ability. Alright? You don't want an interdisciplinary team, you want a doctor to do it, but still you should include this reference, because the assessment of work ability can greatly affect whether a person can get the DA. I've studied the existing assessment form in detail. I've read the Ombudsman's report. I have read the court's ruling. I'm seldom so hardworking. But let me say this. If the government is unwilling to retain the reference to work ability, then I would rather keep the existing form. Because the reference to 100% loss of earning capacity is misleading, because in the checklist, it is said that even if the applicant has work, he may still be eligible. In other words, if we use the existing form, so long as the doctor reads the checklist carefully, and if loss of one limb affects the workability, then the doctor can recommend that DA be paid to him. And there's no need to wait for 6 months. Tomorrow, the permanent secretary should write to all 12,000 doctors telling them the way they should interpret the checklist and the form. And as a result, those with loss of one limb will be eligible for the DA. So if I think I would prefer the existing form if the government decides to remove the reference to workability. And then one more point. And concerning the reference to workability, it reads work in the original occupation and performing any other kind of work. I think the meaning is not clear. It's difficult to understand. Work in the original occupation. This is simple, alright? We can understand. But then the second limb, and performing any other kind of work. What does this mean? I mean, I would think that means some kind of work that he can perform if he is not disabled or if he doesn't suffer from severe disability. In fact, performing this limb means that he can't do any work, performing any other kind of work. If the meaning is he can't do any work, then you should make this point in very simple terms. He can't work. He can't take up any work. So work in the original occupation and performing any other kind of work, that would mean similar work. Say, I'm a doctor. Now, of course, all jobs are equal, but if you ask whether I am suitable to be a Hong Kong cafe worker, now if I am not disabled, then I'm overqualified. But then if I have a disability, I can no longer be a doctor, then I may be able to work in a Hong Kong style cafe. And that would not mean performing any other kind of work similar to my original occupation. And that would mean I should be eligible to apply for DA. Sorry, I've used 9 minutes. Colleagues, if you before you ask the administration questions, you should ask me questions if you have any doubts, because I really have to go to the Academy of Medicine for a talk. All right, if you have anything that you don't understand, ask me first. Concerning paragraph 4.1, they're proposing to delete that part, but in my view, that part must be retained. This is to assess the impact of the disability on the applicant. In fact, this work should be done, this assessment should be done by not only doctors but by a multidisciplinary team. But even if you don't want to deploy a multidisciplinary team to do the assessment, it doesn't mean that you should delete this reference. If the government doesn't want to retain this reference, then I will write to my colleagues clarifying the intention, and my colleagues will know what to do.
So you do not object to deleting the requirement of losing 100% earning capacity? I do not object to that. But you object. You think you should retain the part work in the original occupation, blah blah blah. Yes. We need for the administration to respond before we invite other members to comment. Permanent Secretary or our colleagues from the Hospital Authority, do you have any response? Let me respond first, and then Dr. Dai and Ms. Tang can also supplement. Originally, we proposed to delete the part working in the original occupation or performing any kind of work. This was not our idea, but rather the Ombudsman in his report had said on 2 occasions this. If you refer to the Ombudsman's, the extract of the Ombudsman's report in paragraph 12, since 2007 April, the HA had urged the SWD to review the medical assessment form because the doctor found it difficult to evaluate the applicant and whether or not they relied a lot on other people's assistance before they could work in the original occupation or performing any other kind of work. And also in paragraph 5.3 of the report, there is no Chinese version for this report, and therefore in Annex 1 we've translated it for them into English, and roughly, I don't think the translation was correct. Doctors who have found that they have difficulties in making such assessment, the SWD insisted that doctors certainly have the ability to conduct the various forms of necessary assessments prescribed in the MAF, and therefore whether the applicant had been fully assessed is subject to doubt. So in paragraph 5.3, the Ombudsman was saying that the doctor has once indicated that it's very difficult for them to make the evaluation. Dr. Leung obviously is one of the doctors who carry out such assessment, but the doctors in the HA and the Department of Health told the Ombudsman that they had difficulty in doing this, and also they also felt that they've consulted the doctors and it was agreed that we should delete this part. So Dr. Dai could perhaps explain further. Thank you, Madam Chairman. The duties of the workers at the HA is to help diagnose doctors' patient sickness and then provide treatment, to follow up on their treatment until they are fully cured or the condition stabilized. So during the follow-up consultation, the doctor may, according to the checklist in the assessment form, carried out medical assessment for the patients and recommend as to whether the patient, because of his disease or handicap, have his bodily functions impaired, and as a result fall under the definition of seriously disabled. In assessing whether the patient can work in his or her original occupation or performing any other kind of work, this area of work involves other factors, and we cannot simply rely on the doctor's medical assessment alone. So the HA doctors all along have proposed that we delete this, reference in the checklist. In the 2009 report of the Ombudsman, again, they have reflected views of the HA doctors. So retaining this, reference would pose 2 problems. First of all, it's not fair to doctors because it's not fair to patients because doctors would not conduct the assessment together with the SW and so on. He will only conduct a medical assessment and look at the impairment in his physical functions. Retaining it on the checklist will give the impression that doctors can make such an assessment or are able to assess his workability. But in fact, the doctors don't have that expertise to do it, and therefore there might be queries, and sometimes even disputes may arise. And doctors, therefore, may be put into a difficult situation. It may also damage the relationship between the doctors and the patients. With the help of this review, the HA has also consulted the committees governing the different specialties. We've also set up mechanisms, and we collected views from frontline doctors among our 7 clusters. And the doctors also believe that we should scrap the description, whether or not the patient is in need of substantial help from others to cope with daily life. But the doctors actually indicated that they cannot evaluate the patient's workability. I understand that Dr. Leung would need to leave early, but since you play a very important role in this, so I can give you a few minutes before you leave. Our meeting definitely will need to be extended. I think what you've said, I think I also mentioned that the Ombudsman proposed that there should be a multidisciplinary team to do it, and now you insist that it should be only for the doctor to make that assessment, and therefore you are proposing to scrap this part. The Ombudsman didn't say that you should scrap it. Instead, they asked you to deploy a whole team to make the assessment, but you're not doing that. So I think members will have to decide whether or not we should, for the time being, should not ask the doctor alone to do this. According to the form, there are 4 items. Some doctor may be good at assessing workability. Others are good at making assessment pursuant to items 3, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4. So does it mean that the doctor only need to take one of the 4? And furthermore, you telling us that you've consulted the doctors yesterday, together with my classmate who is equally senior as myself. He is the head of the School of Psychiatry, and he's not even aware of the existence of such a checklist. He is the dean of the School of Psychiatry. He's filled numerous forms, and he's not even pay attention to the existence of such a form. So it's very simple. If the government is unwilling to retain this and say that the doctors actually doctors asked them to scrap this requirement, then I would prefer that you retain the old medical evaluation form for the time being, and then I will tell all doctors how we should interpret the old form and before you come back for consultation, rather than scrapping this requirement here so that people who've lost a single limb would lose their eligibility. No, it's not just for disability allowance. I'm using this example because this example is less controversial. I think everybody would agree that such a person would be eligible. But according to the old medical assessment form, I would be able to grant him, I endorse his application, but whereas according to the new form, I would not be able to do so. The government, perhaps, is not looking at it from the medical perspective. I mean, there might be appeals and complaints, and because of that, the problem doesn't appear with doctors, that's all. I'll now come back and allow to members' questions. Mr. Walker Heng. Dr. Leung, please take time for a few minutes before you. I'm really grateful to Dr. Leung Ka-lau, our fellow counselor, who has read all the documents and the court rulings. I'm really grateful to him. I therefore support Dr. Leung's proposal unconditionally. I will not repeat that here. I also hope that Dr. Leung, I hope you will send out a circular to all 12,000 doctors so that they can uphold justice and help those who are disabled. I think that would be a lot faster, because government is now trying to delay it until the end of 2014 before there will be any results coming out of that study. Once again, I'd like to thank Dr. Leung. You've done a good deed. Thank you very much. Do you have a question? Nick? Yes. Dr. Fernando Zhang has moved the motion, which is seconded by Dr. Leung Ka-lau. I'm not a member of this panel. I therefore will not be able to take part in the vote. But I fully support the motion moved by Dr. Fernando Zhang. Why don't I wait for Dr. Leung to cast a vote, and I'll stop talking. In order for the motion to be supported, I will not say anything further. Because let's deal with the motion first, Chairman. I'm sorry. According to the procedure, we should have fully deliberated the subject before we vote on the motion. Okay. In that case, let me continue. Perhaps the most important thing is what Dr. Leung has heard. The most important thing I wanted to say. I wish to criticize the government for, coming with all sorts of ways to delay this further. Earlier on, the Permanent Secretary had met with the Federation Trade Union. They met with myself and Mr. Tang Ka-piu. On that occasion, I clearly indicated that I am very dissatisfied with the government's stalling tactic. What the government is proposing now does not follow the recommendations of the Ombudsman's report. The Ombudsman's report, referred to 8 areas for government to review. But now the government has only selected certain things that we need to do now. But like Dr. Leung said just now, the Ombudsman has recommended that the HA and the SWD should set up a task force to follow up on this from the sociological perspective to assess the needs of the applicant. But the government deliberately has not set up such a working group, and they've also deleted the requirement in the form. So how can we help the underprivileged and those who need help? You're making it impossible for us to help them. Secondly, the government always say that they don't have the statistics, they don't know how many applicants there are, and they don't know whether the government can afford such a commitment. But if the government were to scrap this condition altogether, it is even between now to the end of 2014, how many people will be deprived of eligibility? There is no figures at all. So I really regret this. And finally, I'd like to express my gratitude for Dr. Leung, and I fully support the motion. I suggest that we should adjourn at 12:45. The seconder for the motion has left, so is it still valid? Yes. It's 1 minute before we are supposed to adjourn. So as the chairman, I propose that we extend for 30 minutes. We'll make it 15. Well, I think in that case we need very good time management. We have 3 other members who are in the queue. 4 minutes each.
減1分鐘，好3分鐘。嗱，咁我哋就延遲15分。
Minutes, okay, we extend for 15 minutes. So, members of the panel, please don't leave. We have just barely had a quorum. Tang Ka-piu, 3 minutes. At that meeting, I asked the government, that is, according to this form, would there be an increasing number of applicants? And we're told that the number will remain the same. But for a doctor who has such a lot of experience in public service, and he told us that if we follow this form, there will be a drop in the number of applicants. That would be a serious problem, because you've changed your policy. Please don't, let this result in another judicial review. Why don't you scrap losing the earning capacity and also retaining the description of, doing his original work? work in the original occupation. Dr. Leung had expressed his personal opinion as to how he would look at the first option in the form. But I hope members will understand that this option is about ability to work in the original occupation or performing any other kind of work. Our standard is for the seriously disabled who would can only cope with daily life with substantial help from others.
有啲情況下
Dr. Leung has said that in some cases he will recommend that the DA be approved. So that's of course Dr. Leung's interpretation, but does it mean that other doctors will also adopt the same interpretation? So while Dr. Leung adopts this interpretation, does it mean that other doctors also adopt this interpretation? But do you agree that the deletion of this reference amounts to a change in the present policy? The amendment will not change the existing policy. I think Mr. Leung's interpretation is his own interpretation. Now, I think, in my view, the format is an improvement because there will no longer be a checklist. All the elements are factors are incorporated into the form. But then you've deleted this reference. Now, say for example, now if you delete one reference, then that's a change in the existing policy. Now, I think doing away with the checklist, the various items will be clearer to the doctor. But then the Ombudsman has said that he doesn't know whether the doctors have been making the assessment based on item 1. Fernando Cheung and then Frankie Yik. Yes, Chairman. The Ombudsman recommends the deletion of the reference to 100% loss of earning capacity, but he has not recommended that the reference to ability to work in the original occupation performing other kind of work be deleted, so it's clear. The Ombudsman recommends that the assessment be carried out by a multidisciplinary team. The team should assess the medical conditions as well as the work ability of the applicant. But then the SWD has rejected this suggestion. So work ability is still one of the criteria. The administration is proposing to delete the reference to work in the original occupation and performing other kind of work. So I think, in fact, you are not allowing the doctor to recommend DA because of loss of work ability due to disability. If you now that 100% loss of earning capacity is deleted, doctors know that they need not judge whether there is 100% loss of earning capacity. It's difficult for a doctor to assess whether it's 100% loss of earning capacity, but then the doctor can assess whether his disability will make it impossible for him to work in the original occupation. A doctor can do that perfectly well. So for those with loss of one limb, with visceral diseases, the doctor can easily assess whether the disability is so severe as to disallow this person to work in the original occupation. So in fact, my motion is very clear. The reference to 100% loss of earning capacity should be deleted, but the reference to work in the original occupation and performing any other kind of work should be retained, so that disabled persons will be given fair treatment. Any response from the administration? 30 seconds. Chairman. We are of the view that the reference to 100% loss of earning capacity can be deleted. Mr. Frankie Yik? Now I have a slightly different view. This is the first time I learned about the subject, and I think it's appropriate to remove 4.1. Now, of course, Dr. Leung is very experienced. He is in a position to judge, but then maybe other more junior doctors may not know how to judge what is meant by performing any other kind of work. And then the doctor can still make reference to items 2, 3, and 4. Now, members keep talking about loss of one limb. I have a friend who has lost one limb, and I think you know him, and he is an instructor of rock climbing. I agree that the reference to 100% loss of earning capacity should be deleted. But I think removing 4.1 will not affect the doctor's assessment. Now, if a person has lost one limb and can't take care of himself, then the doctor can put a tick against 2, 3, or 4. Permanent Secretary, can you please explain? Yes. No, in fact, there are doctors sitting on Mr. Fong's working group, including Dr. Tai. Now, under the revised form, the doctor only needs to take one of items 2, 3, and 4, and the applicant will be able to get a D8. So it's about taking care of oneself, going to the toilet, taking a bath, standing up or sitting down, and the ability to maintain balance, and so on and so forth. So that would satisfy the criterion of severe disability, and as a result requiring substantial help from others to cope with daily life. So items 2, 3, and 4, not all, but only one of them, will do. Item 1 is work in the original occupation and performing any other kind of work. And in fact, this item doesn't apply to those who are not working or children. And then the members were of the view that 2, 3, and 4 were easier. And so deleting item 1 will help the doctors do their work, and will also ensure consistency. Right? We have 2 members who've just come in, and they've raised their hands. Right? Anyone who would like to speak? KK Fong, KK Kwok, and then Tang Ka-piu for the second round. Right? I'll draw a line here. And I think we will extend the meeting by 10 more minutes, right? Till 10 past 1. No objection? But Chairman, I'm worried that we will not be able to vote. The vote will be invalid. according to the clerk, that will not happen. Right, 10 minutes. KK Fong. I've got only one question. I support this motion. All right, you support the motion. I just want to know, I have the administration's response. I support the motion. Right, what if the motion is carried? Permanent Secretary. Now we're here to listen to members' views. If that's the view of members, then we will consult the RAC again. We'll go back to the working group. We'll seek legal advice. How long is it going to take? No, we came back. We're coming back after 6 months, so we will do it as soon as possible. Well, the administration is now reviewing the definition of disability, and that's going to take a total of a year. And according to Dr. Leung, even if no amendments are made, doctors can still do the assessment. Though the concern of the ombudsman cannot be addressed, so perhaps we can write to the ombudsman telling him that perhaps we can wait for a while, because after the administration has come up with a revised definition for disability, all the forms will have to be changed and revised. So it's really not as urgent as one may think. KK Fong, that doesn't mean that you'll take another 6 months. Now, whether members cast a vote or not, we'll go back to the working group, and then we will arrange a meeting with the RAC. How long? She hasn't given me an answer. 3 months or what? I want her to tell me how long. KK Kwok. I want to say that I have no comments concerning Dr. Cheung's motion. And I've heard Dr. Leung's views. Now, in fact, it's difficult to assess disability. And in fact, the Ombudsman has asked the SWD and the Hospital Authority to do the assessment. Now, let me tell you what actually happened. I and many other Hospital Authority doctors were responsible for medical assessment when we joined the HA in the first year. We were not given training concerning medical assessment. I can tell you that in other advanced places in the world, making medical assessment is regarded as a complicated and extremely scientific task in many countries, especially in the US. Only those who have received training in occupational medicine can do the assessment.
The government, the Labour Department and the SWD in particular are not acting in a responsible manner because they have delegated this important work to for the HA. So I have a question for Dr. Dai. For staff who are making the medical assessment, what training have they been given and how senior are they? For doctors who officially conduct such a medical assessment, such doctors are officially trained. I think you know what I'm talking about. You're talking about disability allowance, the preliminary assessment. In fact, for disability allowance, in terms of training, we don't have any training on how to assess, help doctors assess work capacity. For occupational disability, we doctors responsible for making such assessment do have professional training. Well, yeah, I've been serving in that capacity as well. But for the general assessment of disability, yeah, no. When patients come back for follow-up consultation. The doctors will, based on the follow-up consultation and his conditions, will conduct assessment about his functional disability. What about the seniority of these doctors? Do you have any such figures? We have not done that, and we do not have any seniority requirement for doctors. So I think Dr. Dai agrees with me that the government is not acting responsibly and has passed the buck on to the HA. And the HA doctors, in the absence of any training, would need to make decisions which may affect patients for the rest of their lives. The government is taking a shortcut here. They simply pick the easy way out. They were asked to set up a multidisciplinary task force, and they've not done it. So if we can support the government's amendments, and a lot of people will suffer, because many doctors are caught in the middle. Why is it that Dr. Leung has said so much today? Because we're caught in the middle. We're never given any training or support, but we have to do this work, and very often the complaints are directed against us doctors. Mr. Tang Ka-piu, second round. 1 minute. Colleagues have made some queries earlier. I'd like to clarify that since the paper said clearly that what we read from the paper is not a policy change. We understand, Mr. Ye, the community different views about disability, but according to what you say in Annex 5, you've changed your policy, and we have our fellow councillors who is a professional saying that some people will lose their eligibility because of this new policy. We're not talking about the scenario where you don't satisfy one of the options, then you would be disqualified. But rather, if you satisfy one of the 4 conditions, you can apply for disability allowance. Some people say, I think the important thing is that if you qualify under one of those 4 requirements, you would be eligible. So what I'm saying is that without changing the policy, is this form appropriate? I think Mr. Yik is correct at the policy level. Even if we scrap the first item, we've sought the view of the DFJ, it will not affect the original policy intent. Secondly, if we retain 1, and some members have told us, and the people whom we have consulted, not this panel, they are talking about, they're worried about the question. So were the doctors willing to take the first item, and like Dr. Dai said, for doctors who need to make such assessments, they would have this difficulty. So consistency is something that we need to bear in mind. Many people who are collecting disability allowance have told us there's not a question of whether or not they can collect their payment. They just want consistency and fairness. Right now, some people are eligible, others are not, and they don't understand why. That's why they want consistency and clarity. I think we need to deal with the motion now. If I may sum up before we go to the motion, I think the administration should note that frontline doctors are not given any training, and there's no, we don't have a consistent basis to assess work injuries. So the result is that frontline doctors are telling us you should not include this. So it's a question whether you have the egg or the chicken first. Secondly, originally we wanted a team to make that evaluation on work injury, but now you are relying on a single doctor because you're safe, placing the responsibility on that doctor. But if that, so originally what you wanted to do, you don't want to do, and because of that, members have moved the motion. That is, even if you don't accept this motion, please don't change that assessment form. I think that's a clear view we want to express today. So with that, I think we can now deal with the motion. Would you like to read it out, or do we still have time? All right, I'll read it out once. Thank you, Chairman. This panel agrees that the government should implement the recommendation of the Ombudsman in respect of the amendment to the medical evaluation form and scrap the part about losing 100% of the work capacity. But we object to the deletion of the reference to work in the original occupation or performing any other kind of work, so that people who have suffered, who have lost a limb, will have the opportunity to be assessed by the doctor about the extent of the disability and whether or not they qualify for disability allowance. All right, that's very clear. All those in favor? I think it's unanimous. Thank you very much. AOB, we do not have any other business to deal with, so may I declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you. I'd like to thank the administration as well.